Your bullpen today, right? How did it go?
Somewhat, yeah. I'm in the stand-up bullpen period, I guess. So hopefully I have the catcher down in a few weeks and kind of go from there. Hopefully September 1, I guess, is still the goal for me, but I want to come up at a certain pitch count and things like that to where me being here is not, a hindrance. So yeah, things are good so far, and it's a long deal, but we're 2/3 of the way, I guess.
Do you feel like the progression and just the pace of how things are going is kind of where you want to be at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point there's like the throttling of how hard you're throwing and stuff like that, but I feel really good, and some of the trainers, I guess, want me to dial it back a little bit, but it's just kind of not how I operate. So yeah, things are good.
How have you sort of spent the downtime, the sort of menial time that sort of goes along with the rehab?
Just doing some dumps, playing golf, tweeting all the time, podcasting. I get bored, so it's been fun though. I mean, we're at the field from 7:30 to 1, and then you kind of got all day. So hanging out with the wife and the dogs and doing all that other shit, I guess.
How much has there been like a mental toll just of going through a rehab process a second time, just sort of being familiar with some of those different sets, obviously being in a different stage of your life and your career?
Yeah, just having kind of a life now, I think helps, and 3 dogs, which is about 3 too many at some times, but no, you just hang out and try and get through it, and 8.5 or 9 months or whatever it has been now has gone pretty quick, and this is kind of the exciting time coming up, so hopefully it keeps rolling.
Does having gone through it make it easier because you know what to expect, or harder because you know what to expect?
I think easier. I think the first one went pretty good, so my expectation is that this one will as well, but there's ups and downs to it, and having gone through it before, I think those aren't as scary, I guess. You kind of, the oh my god, did I just blow it again thing is not really a fear that I have anymore, so I think it helps overall.
Did the added flexor tendon repair too change anything in terms of kind of recovery?
I don't know, man. I'm not a surgeon, I'm not a trainer. I just try and throw, and it feels good to me.
When you say September 1, is that as a starter in the majors, or?
Yeah, I don't think anything has happened that would tell me that's not an achievable goal. Obviously, we've got a lot of talented players and a really good team, and I'm going to try and contribute any way I can. But for me, being a starting pitcher is my goal, and the way that I think I can increase or provide the most value. And so hopefully everything's good and my stuff's good, and I can get people out again, and then hopefully I can make some starts.
There's a situation like if certain time left in the season where you might not be able to be a starter, would you be open to pitching in relief at that point?
Yeah, I don't know. I think until something happens that tells me I need to do that or consider that, I probably wouldn't. But I've always kind of been one of the guys that takes the ball whenever and however I can. So I think if something says that I need to try and be a reliever, then I will. But for now, there's nothing saying that to me.
When the surgery is going to happen, obviously you mentioned some of the unknown that kind of comes with the second time you kind of go through this. The way you're feeling now, are you more optimistic that you can kind of get back to where you were before?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I had probably the best surgeon in the world do my elbow twice. So the day I had surgery, he told me it was one of the best surgeries he's done, and maybe that was just him trying to make me feel better. But I've really taken it to heart. I feel good about it, and I trust Dr. Elitrash, with whatever. So, as long as I feel good, I feel good about it.
How much energy have you sort of given to sort of history with second TJ with guys like that, or how much have you even thought about that?
I mean, there's a couple guys right now that one guy just signed an $80 million contract on his second, Tommy John. Nate Eovaldi's throwing as good as anybody in baseball right now. So, him and Italian, I guess, are kind of the two that jump out to me right now. But it can be done, and hopefully I've put on some weight and done some things, tried to figure out my mechanics a little bit more to have at least the run that I had on the first one, and I feel good about it.
How does your timeline jive with the team's timeline and your Ducks' timeline?
I don't know. rehab is probably the most selfish time you're ever going to have, and so for me, it's plotting the timeline that is going to put me in the best position to contribute when I'm back, and so hopefully it all lines and everything works its magic, and I get to play at the end of the year. But I also have to try and look out for myself and the team here, right? I think the biggest thing is I want to be back healthy all of next year. So, this year there's definitely some exciting parts of playing at the end of this year and something I really want to do. But if I'm not good enough or not healthy enough, then I don't think we're going to try and jam a square peg into a round hole.
Walker, I know it's kind of like a quickly advancing field, and I'm wondering, because Elacha just told me, right, even sometimes like the sutures that they use now are like different. Do you know if there's any aspect of this surgery, whether it's stuff like that or techniques that are different than what you did the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I think one weird thing about my surgery was it wasn't necessarily another tear. I had a kind of a piece of bone from an old kind of injury that broke off and went into my ligament, so they had to cut that out, but they didn't have, nothing tore again. It wasn't like I threw and it ripped out. So essentially it was a full Tommy John. It was reconstruction. It was all medically what they would say, but I don't think it technically was as detrimental to the long-term health of my elbow. So I guess it's kind of reflected in the fact that most Tommy Johns are 14 to 18 month rehabs, and some guys their first Tommy John they're waiting 14 18 months, and I feel very comfortable trying to come back in 12 months on my second one. So I guess the stuff behind the scenes or the way it's been explained to me kind of gives me some comfort in trying to do that.
Have you ever heard of that before? Has somebody told you that there's been a Tommy John recipient who had the bone in
Yeah, I mean, some crazy shit happens in our elbows. It just in our shoulders and whatever. So, everybody's different and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think anyone's explained exactly what happened to them exactly like mine and whatnot. But, calcium deposits, all that kind of stuff happens. And, luckily mine, I guess, was pretty simple for Elatrosh to clean out of there and kind of get it the way he wanted it. And, he did the first one and it worked out pretty good for me. So, I feel good about it.
Elatrosh has told me that a lot of times how quick a guy recovers, it kind of depends on how good of a patient a person is. Do you think you're a good patient?
I think I'm probably the opposite of that theory.
Sabrina, you did mention you put on a little bit of weight. You look stronger and bigger. Was that something that was kind of pointing towards power, things like that, or was that just something besides gym?
Yeah, I've always kind of been I've tried to lift heavy, but in low reps, I think, and this time gives you the time to just kind of build all that stuff up. And, I've been the same weight, pretty close to the same weight my whole career, and I'm about 12 pounds heavier now. So, I feel good about it.
That was one of those things, before you got hurt, you kind of talked about, I'm not 6'6", the mechanics are a little bit different. How much is that sort of in mind as you sort of changing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge part of this rehab, right? There's times you want to go out and rip and throw as hard as you can, and guys will get frustrated when velocity comes back, and I think I'm more in the opposite camp where I only get frustrated if the ball doesn't feel right or my throw doesn't, my mechanics and all that kind of stuff. So I think I'm focusing more on that stuff probably than the velocity. Obviously I care about velocity and all that stuff, but trying to kind of get some feels back from 18, 20 months ago when I felt really good in 21. So that was kind of a weird caveat because in 22 I just never really felt right. I think you guys know that, but then I get hurt, and so now typically you wait 6 months and you're trying to find a feel you had 6 months ago, and I think I was trying to find some stuff from 2 years ago, right? So I think that's kind of been my focus so far, and now that we're ramping up, it's kind of more go time, but also fun because I get to get off the mound and feel some other stuff. So it's good.
What's sort of the general outline, maybe month by month as we go forward?
Yeah, I'm not a trainer or a strength coach or throwing coach, but once we get on the mound, I think we'll know a little bit more. Obviously, I've been off there a little bit, but throwing downhill and all that kind of stuff is probably the next hurdle, and that's in about 3 weeks, hopefully. So I guess you guys can wait until then.
What have you been doing with all your extra time?
Been playing some golf. You got to wait a little while to play golf. I get to play. I'm going to my member guest at my country club with my dad in a couple weeks, so that'll be fun. Something we don't get to do much, and when I got hurt, it was I want to play on the member gas, member, and go to the Derby, and we're 1 for 3 on those so far. So that's kind of the only thing on the agenda. Thanks, guys.